Moody, and she's going to call the meeting to order. Appreciate everybody coming. There are a whole lot of faces out there that I love, and so tonight's going to be kind of fun for us. Will you gavel and say call to order?
Call to order.
All right. I'm going to let you come up. Yeah. All right. We'll give Callie a chance to get a seat, and then we'll thank everybody for indulging me on this. Okay, roll call.
Brooks,
Here.
Kushner,
Here.
Lund,
Here.
Bentley,
Here.
Holmberg,
Here. All right, item 3, approve of the city council minutes, 3-1 city council minutes, February 28th, 2022.
Move to approve. Move to approve.
Brooks,
Yes.
Kushner,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes. All right, item 3-2, joint city council and park board minutes, February 28th, 2022.
Move to approve.
Brooks,
Yes.
Kushner,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes. Okay, item number 4, adoption of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Brooks,
Yes.
Kushner,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes. Okay, item 5, 5-1 Disability Awareness Month. I know that we have some folks that have been invited to speak tonight. So I think Callie, you were going to come speak. Can you come to the podium? So part of what, so everybody knows, obviously I've talked to a few of the folks and Daniel Dillon have, is I like what we've done with the diversity inclusion. And so let's talk about some of the things. This is Developmental Disability Awareness Month. Let's actually hear from some of our citizens and become more aware. So Callie.
Hello. I don't think it's my disability as a curse. It's a gift. People like me see things in life differently. I have seen my life differently from the way other people see it. I think special needs people are a gift to society. Is that all?
If that's all you want to say, ma'am.
Okay,
All right.
you're welcome.
All right. Thanks, Callie. So we've got 2 Andys. Andy Kerr, are you going to?
And the other Andy.
Well, I don't know if Andy Martin's. Come on up, Andy.
Oh.
Good afternoon. So, I want to thank everyone for having us to discuss disability awareness. And my name is Robert Andrew Kerr, and I've had a disability most of my life. And basically, I think everyone who's disabled, if you think about it, everyone is disabled in some ways. And I think everyone needs to be more open to the disability people around them and get to know them. And what else do you want me to say?
Whatever you want to say, bro.
Okay, I mean, I'm so, well, I thought I didn't want to speak.
There you go. Andy Martin, are you wanting to speak tonight? Okay, that's fine enough. How about Keith? Keith Smith?
I got something else.
Hold on, Keith. We'll get it. This is the first time I've actually known everybody that was going to speak, so you know. We're going to talk about that. Keychains. I'll give them out.
My name is Keith Smith. I work at Warrensburg Audit, plus Applebee, and I work at Rise Community Service. I got here in 1991, and I got a girlfriend sat back there behind me. Come on, Grandma. That was life. My wife sat back behind me. That was father. She used to live with me for almost 5 years. Now we've been married for 5 years.
Hi, my name's Evelyn. I go to church. I go to Cowboy Church, and it's a great church. Anybody welcome to come and rise or company to work for? And I do the dishes and everything like that.
So something I do ask permission, and I asked Keith and Evelyn. I was honored to attend their wedding ceremony. They are some of the first folks in the state of Missouri to be married. They chose to get married at Cave Hollow. Many of you know that may be a very special place to some of us, that particular park. But, you know, we talk about folks and how much in common we are. So I had the honor, Keith, before marriage, Keith said, you know, Scott, can we go talk? And so we went out on a farmer's market Saturday and had coffee and set up by the courthouse. And Keith just opened up a little bit and he says, you know, I really love Evelyn and I just want to know how I can always make her happy. And so we talked a little bit. I have all the answers if any of you want to know. That's but no, the point is that, you know, it's just the common. We also, we had Skylar Tess here last year. She's not here this year, but I want to take an opportunity. Skylar is one of our citizens that won Miss Missouri Amazing. And what that is a talent beauty type contest similar to Miss America for women with developmental disabilities. And so we had the International Women's Month Day, March 8th. Well, Skylar actually won. And so then we had to fundraise and get her to Chicago. Wish she would have taken nationals, but you know, one of our citizens has won the state award and stuff. And so we've talked about work. We've talked about love. We've talked about life. We've talked about faith. I just think it's so very important that we understand how much alike we are. I will tell you that Warrensburg gets awareness with developmental disabilities right. I know that for a fact. You know, the Keith sold keychains for the inclusive park. Skylar made bracelets. We had lots of fundraisers. Council supported with the Stevens. Casey Lund made the motion. I remember all of these things because as a community, we get this well. And so thought we would talk about that a little bit tonight. I'm going to come down and read a proclamation. I think I'll get through it. I hate to say I have feelings, but I do have deep feelings. But with everybody that is representing the DD awareness staff and others, come forward and let's read a proclamation. Come on up, Keith, Evelyn, Cindy, Andy, Laura. Scott. If you guys ever want to know how to get the cool t-shirts, ask me. I always say it. So anyway, thank you, Monica, for getting on. Okay, any staff, family? Okay.
Step, Alice, come on.
Come on, she called you. You gotta come. All right. So whereas during Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, we reaffirm our commitment to ensuring that our great state's promise extends to all our citizens, and whereas nearly 4 million Americans have grown up with severe physical or mental impairments that have slowed their learning, limited their mobility, inhibited their expression, and rendered them dependent on others for care and assistance. For many of these people with developmental disabilities, there is now the prospect of a greater future and a greater opportunity. Whereas new opportunities have been created through the efforts of those with developmental disabilities and their family members, along with professionals and officials at all levels of government. Working together, they brought about significant changes in the public perception of young people and adults with developmental disabilities, opening new doors to independent, productive life. Whereas on February 28th, 1987, President Ronald Reagan officially declared proclamation 5613, making March National Developmental Disability Awareness Month. He urged Americans to increase public awareness of the needs and the potential of Americans with developmental disabilities. Whereas it is intended to urge those of our community to seek opportunities to embrace the richness of America's diversity by considering the talents and efforts of all members of the community with different abilities. Now Scott Holmberg, Mayor of City of Warrensburg, keeping with the National Developmental Disability Awareness Month, do hereby proclaim the month of March to be Missouri Developmental Disability Awareness within the City of Warrensburg, Missouri, 14th of March, 2022. Thank you, guys.
Bro.
Yes, you can have it. You want to do it now?
Okay.
All right. Who's it? So she wants to do a selfie, so can we grab a picture real quick? Proclamation.
Wow. One more. I got a shitty one. Just laughing. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
I appreciate it.
All right. Council and staff, I appreciate when we take time to. Okay, let me get caught up. Okay, so now we go on to other important business as well. Item 6, presentation 6-1 audit report presented by John Cummings, auditor.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me here this evening. I'll try and keep my comments brief, but if you have questions, feel free to ask. I've handed out a summary basically of the audit for September 31st or September 30, 2021. And that's stapled there. There's also the bound audit booklet in 2 separate letters. I'll try and stick with the summary comments, but of course, if you have questions, feel free to ask, and if questions pop up later, feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email. I'll get you answers on anything you might have questions about. So this audit is for the year ended September 30, 2021. Your bound booklets would, on page 4 through 6, have the independent auditors report, and it discusses the report on the financial statements for the year ended September 30, 2021. And it gives opinions basically on the governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund of the city, and the discretely presented component unit. And it discusses also management's responsibility for the financial statements. Management is responsible for the financial statement preparation and takes those responsibilities. We do assist in preparing a draft, and then city personnel go through it and review it and make sure they're okay with it, and then they accept responsibility, and then we can issue an opinion and put it all in the report. So the next thing is auditor's responsibility, which is to audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States, as well as government auditing standards. And then we issue an opinion on the financials. And the good news is that the city's received an unmodified opinion. That's on page 5 and under the opinions heading. And unmodified means that there's no qualifications basically to the opinion. So it's clean. it's the best possible result. So good job on that. Page 22 of the bound report covers the balance sheet for your governmental funds. And on the assets side of the ledger, the total assets of the city increased by 9.7 million from last year to 20.5 million. So that's a substantial increase from one year to the next. The general fund's assets increased 1.1 million to $7,493,391. Park fund assets increased by 382,000 to $2,004,667. The capital improvement transportation fund assets increased 603,000 to end at 1.2 million. The capital improvement half cent fund assets increased by 561,000 to end at $1,281,520. And you added the American Recovery Plan Act Fund, which had ending assets of $2,061,661. And that's restricted cash because it'll be expended in the next, well, this current fiscal year you're in now, or maybe the next one. So then the capital improvement bond fund assets increased by $5,150,000 due to the issuance of new bonds. So as you can see, that's a lot of increases in assets. That's a very good thing. So the city's having had a pretty good year in 2021. On the other side of the ledger is the liabilities, also on page 22. Total liabilities increased by 2.2 million to $2,963,996. And that's mostly due to the ARPA funds being considered unearned revenue. Basically, those funds that you received are restricted and you're not going to expend them in 2021. So the revenue is basically not recognized in that year. It'll be recognized as you expend the funds. That makes budgeting a little easier on all of you because then as you budget your ARPA expenditures, then you have also got a revenue to offset it in your budget and you don't see a big deficit. So kind of matches things up a little better going forward. So on the general fund liabilities, they increased by 128,000 to $487,651. The park fund liabilities decreased by 22,000 to $196,694. And the capital improvement transportation fund liabilities increased by 65,000 to $72,111. On the next page of the summary, jumps over to page 25. You might say, why didn't you talk about fund balances? Well, you can talk about assets and you can talk about liabilities. Fund balances is the other part of that. But the other thing that goes into fund balance is, of course, revenues and expenses. And so those are on 25 in your bound book. And total revenues of your governmental activities increased by 1.2 million to $17,233,848. The total expenditures decreased by 2.5 million to $15,704,732. That decrease is mostly due to having a prior year refunding in your neighborhood improvement fund of 2.6 million. So pretty much what I'm saying is revenues were, or expenses were pretty flat. On the general fund side of things, the revenues increased by 517,000 from the prior year to $10,208,067, while the expenditures increased 225,000 from the prior year to a total of $9,896,059. And the park fund revenues increased 417,000 to $2,766,752. The expenditures increased 292,000 to $2,063,893. And the citywide tax revenues increased $753,817 to a total of 15.1 million in 2020-21 fiscal year. So all of that kind of together on page 26 of the bound booklet covers the increases in fund balance for each of the funds. I'll hit the highlights here. I've got them in the summary just so you can look a little later, but the general fund increased in fund balance for the year by $951,179 to end at $7,005,740. The park fund increased by $405,078 to end at $1,807,973. The capital improvement transportation fund increased by $538,146 to end at $1,091,450. And the capital improvement half cent fund increased $561,000 $561,369 to end at $1,281,520. And overall, in your capital improvement bond fund, you increased $5.16 million to end at $5,640,623. And the total for all funds, including those that were kind of the smaller items, had a net increase of $7,615,589 to end with total fund balances of $17,125,234. All of that to say, again, strong financial year for the city. So good job on that, strong budgeting and taking care of the money. So you're not broke. So the next page here on page 30 in your bound booklet is the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position for your sewer fund. And the sewer fund had operating revenues that increased $480,000 to $5,079,795. Operating expenses for the sewer fund increased only $237,000 to a total of $3,305,862. So your net income in sewer went from $713,000 last year to $969,000 this year. So good, strong year financially in the sewer fund as well. So your net position in the sewer fund is $17,656,726. This statement also includes the internal service fund, which had a net loss of $128,550 in the current year compared to a gain of $55,998 last year. So overall, the net internal service fund ended at $659,231. Basically, that's health insurance related. So overall, I think that fund's probably okay. Any questions on the financials? I kind of blew through it really fast, but you have a long agenda, I noticed, so I didn't think anyone would mind. There aren't any questions on financials. There are two stapled letters. We'll go over the management recommendation letter. It starts with a new pronouncement, and I wanted to, while you're finding that, just thank Danielle and Marcella, Carl, Rachel, everybody across the street, Gary, that helped out in getting everything for the audit. They're very patient with us and very proactive as well, actually. We ask for things, they upload them to SureLink. It makes it a lot easier on us because it's there when we're able to process it. When we come in, it makes fieldwork go easier, but hopefully not as much of an interruption on their day when we're in there. But I know that we are, for lack of a better term, a pain when we interrupt a day's normal activities. So we appreciate their patience and their helpfulness throughout the process. Okay, so the first item here is a new pronouncement. I've talked about it before, but it is now upon us. It is GASB 87 leases. And basically it is going to change how leases are recognized in the financial statements, both the leases where you are the lessee or the lessor. So there will be some.
Sir?
Yes.
All right. Which one are we talking about? You said,
The letter, it's got the new pronouncement.
It's kind of in the summary as well.
okay, all right.
There's
I was looking the wrong one. Okay, got it.
I think I included it in both spots, actually. I probably misled.
Oh, they were attached. They were like stuck to each other. That's why I was confused.
I stacked them perfectly.
Exceptionally well.
Exceptionally well. So that can happen sometimes. So this basically is going to introduce some new lease assets and some new lease liabilities to the financial statements in your September 30, 2022 year. And of course, earlier application was encouraged, and nobody likes to be the frontline implementers on new GASBs. So GASB is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. They set all the accounting rules. Basically, the last few years, I think they've been trying to be FASB light, which FASB is what generally governs all the other accounting standards that aren't government. And so everything that they do, government tries to do. And it's kind of a weird chase that they're doing at the moment, but a lot of transition happening in governmental accounting standards. And this is the one that's going to affect you most currently. There's another one that is kind of just informational here in a minute, but we'll go over it in a minute. Second item on here is internal audit procedures, and the city continues to kind of work through the COVID-19 pandemic and personnel changes and things, and just things that come at normal daily operations. And sometimes things get thrown into flux because of COVID. And so basically, we're saying that the city should periodically conduct a review of its internal control procedures. They're doing that periodically right now, but we also want to see the city continue to do that because things are evolving quickly. A lot's happening in the city, a lot of positive stuff. And so the negative things and the positive things can impact operations and how controls work and how everything fits together, both from a effectiveness and an efficiency standpoint. So it's important to do these reviews to keep tabs on that and keep the city somewhat nimble on policies and procedures so that it's addressing the situation it's operating in. Next item is cybersecurity. We talked about that before. Of course, right now there's ongoing threat of Russia apparently doing more in the way of cyber attacks. And so it's probably front of mind for everybody right now. And I'm an accountant through and through, not a computer guy. So I won't get into any kind of detail here beyond, I know there's a threat. And so vigilance is necessary. And so that's kind of what we're saying here. There's threats that are increasing and the city has a lot of information that's valuable to potential criminals. So it's important to evolve with that particular threat and address it as necessary going forward. The next item, item 4, is federal program compliance. And since 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic has led to a lot of new federal programs coming out, ARPA being one of them, but there are others. And this is going to ratchet up the city's chances of having what's known as a single audit. Anytime you spend over $750,000 in federal funds, there's an additional audit that is performed basically on grant requirements. And part of what is in uniform guidance, which is what the single audit is all about, is a lot of what most people would refer to as red tape. And that red tape has to do with policies, procedures, how you go about procuring the things with the grant funds, basically approval and monitoring, all kinds of stuff. So there's specific compliance requirements we'll have to check during the audit, but one of them will be, no doubt, procurement. So this is basically a reminder to take a look at the city's purchasing policy, procurement policy, and make sure that it is in alignment with uniform guidance as to when things are bid, how many bids you have to get, and the overall process, so that it aligns with the federal requirements so there aren't findings in the single audit. Because I have a pretty good feeling that the 2022 year is a single audit year for you. So if you adapt your policies now, make sure you're good, then you're not going to have findings next year. So it'll be a nice, smooth audit delivery next year too. So with that, some items of note. Obviously, current events have been somewhat unsettling, I suppose. Going back to the March of 2020, there's a lot of disruptions to normal operating procedures, but also people are just distracted more often. Is what we've seen in audit process, not necessarily here, but just more broadly people. And that can affect how people perform in their jobs. It can affect how they approach controls. It affects a lot of things. And so it's something to be cognizant of, because when you start talking about risks to the city, fraud is obviously something the city is always concerned about. That's why you have processes, procedures, controls, and that sort of thing. And part of anybody that's going to commit a fraud's decision is they will generally get to where they feel justified to do it. And part of justification is feeling disrespected or unhappy or whatever. Well, when people are just kind of, I don't know how it is for everybody here, but I have kind of thought, well, since 2020, there's been a bit of a cloud over people. They tend to be a little shorter fused, maybe, or a little easier to offend. And so, somebody in the employee of the city were to have that feeling, perhaps, and see an opportunity just by, doing something, then obviously there's a heightened risk, because you've got more factors in place that might make somebody be willing to commit a fraud. So the risks have changed. As the situation evolves, basically, it's important to monitor your internal controls, as I said before. Make sure that the city's addressing the different situations that you have in working conditions and in personnel. In our own firm, we've seen differences in stress levels and a lot more mobility of staff. Actually, we've had a lot of people come to us and a lot of people leave just because they're unhappy or a different opportunity arises or this or that. So all of these things affect the effectiveness of the internal controls of the city, and it's something to be monitoring and thinking about as you go through. So I mentioned earlier that there was a GASB statement that was not in the written letter, but it is in this summary, and it is GASB 91, and it has to do with conduit debt obligations. I wanted to bring this to your attention because it is effective, and you do have some conduit debt. So with that in mind, this does affect that a little bit, but if you're at an MML conference or something like that, they bring it up, just know, oh, that one, that's the one John said. Basically, it's changes the disclosure if we're going to have to make the payment for other parties. So it really doesn't affect anything as long as the other party is making their debt payments. So anyway, beyond that, GASB is working on a complete overhaul of the entire governmental reporting financial model, and that's probably going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years. And so that will be fun. Stay tuned. It changes most everything about what you see in the financial statements. So if you're interested in seeing some of that, it's all available on gasb.org, and as well as all the GASB statements if you're needing some light reading before bedtime. And so with that, I will bring this to a close. So any questions?
I have one.
Yes.
I do understand the concept of conduit debt. Where do we have it?
So this has to do, let me get to the note so I don't misspeak.
Yeah, because if somebody asks, I'm gonna tell them what you tell me, so.
So it's note 17 in the page 67 of your report. And basically it's your taxable industrial development revenue bond series 2017. And
Okay.
there's $110 million worth of that outstanding. There's also another 45 million of taxable industrial development revenue bond series 2008 that's out there as well. So 43,869,000 outstanding.
Appreciate you giving me the reference. I thank you for answering. Any other questions for John? Well, thank you for coming on an evening and spending time with us and taking up your time to present. So appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. And if you have any questions as you go through this, read through the report later, feel free to give me a call and I'll be happy to help out. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, on to 7, first reading only ordinances. So 7.1, first reading of an ordinance approving and accepting the minor plat of Oakmont Villas, second plat, a subdivision in the city of Warrensburg, Missouri, located on Oakmont Drive. Presented by Barb Carroll.
Mayor and City Council. This is the plat that's been submitted by Warrensburg Tires LLC, represented by Daniel Spees. This is for the tract of land that's at the southwest corner of Clark Street, West Clark Street and Oakmont Drive. Earlier in December and January, the council considered a request for rezoning of this land, and that was denied. So the zoning remains as R1, and that is not changing with any of the requests this evening. The zoning stays the same. He has submitted this minor plat, which takes the existing lot and would split it into 2 lots. Would create a lot on the south end that's 60 feet wide, frontage on Oakmont Drive, and that would be a single family lot that a house could be put on. The remainder of the tract of land would become lot 2, and that is the lot with an existing house on it already. And at this time, the house would remain and stay in place as a single family house on that tract 2, or on the lot 2. Earlier this evening, the Planning Commission considered this at their meeting, and I've passed out their written recommendation and finding. They've recommended approval of the plat as submitted. Staff would also recommend approval of the plat as submitted. We would recommend approval of the ordinance and be happy to answer any questions. It's just for a first reading tonight.
So you guys wants to, he's gonna build houses there now and not town
At this point, he is going to plat the lot and I think build a house on it. I don't know if he'll build it or try to sell it and have someone else build it. I don't know. And then the remainder of it with the existing house on it. I don't know what the future holds for that. He may try to further split that in the future. But right now it would stay as one piece of land.
Anything else? Thanks, ma'am. All right, 7.2. First reading, an ordinance authorizing city manager and city clerk to approve a scope of service with Anderson Engineering Incorporated under the terms and conditions. The engineering services agreement for Enterprise Lift Station and Sanitary Sewer Extension Project Engineering in the city of Warrensburg, Missouri. Danielle?
Thank you, Mayor and City Council, for the opportunity to present this evening. We have, one of the projects we proposed with the American Rescue Plan Act funds is taking and retiring the Enterprise Lift Station. The Enterprise Lift Station was constructed and put into place in 1996. This lift station services the subdivision areas. There's a map that was included in your packet, but it is, I believe, the Fox Ridge subdivision and the Veterans Home. All of that subdivision area is goes into that lift station and it is force fed into a gravity manhole on the other side of Highway 50. Due to the aging infrastructure and some maintenance challenges that we are having, we are recommending retiring that Enterprise lift station, as well as we know we are starting to see some new development. We have a new subdivision that's getting ready to come on the other side of our woods there. So we are proposing to do the engineering and the design. This would make this a shovel-ready project. So when Missouri Department of Natural Resources has their grant opportunities available with their ARPA funding, we can match our ARPA funding with that ARPA funding. But one of the things they indicated they would be looking for would be shovel-ready projects. So that is the purpose of moving forward with this project today. This is just a first reading. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Thank you, ma'am. Moving on to item 8, second reading of ordinance. An ordinance amending ordinance 5698 concerning the adopted fiscal year 2022 annual budget. Presented by Marcel.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you this evening is the second reading of an amendment to the 2021-2022 adopted budget. The primary focus to this is the furlough repayment out of the ARPA monies to afford that, as the final rule allows that from the Treasury Department. The lodging tax was amended with the WCBB, and so we needed to match those monies with general fund because that's a pass through from general fund to the WCBB. And another piece is the wastewater water pollution control fund to bring the revenue stream into the projections for the rates that were increased the 1st of January and those expenditures with that. And I'll be happy to answer any questions. For second reading.
Look for a motion.
Move to approve.
Brooks,
Yes.
Kushner,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes. Okay, we have a first and second reading of an ordinance non-proton. Did I say that correct? Pretty close. All right. To correct an error in ordinance 5692 concerning annexation of a portion of 703 North Devasia Road. Barb?
So in January of this year, the council approved ordinance 5692, which annexed a portion of 703 North of Asia Road into the city limits. And then later on in the hearing, you established a zoning district on that, and you rezoned the other part of that property to the same zoning district to match light industrial zoning. So you have 3 items on your agenda that evening. which involved two different legal descriptions, and staff put the wrong legal description in the annexation ordinance. The good news is we put the right legal description in the media notice, but didn't get it correct on the ordinance itself. So we are respectfully requesting this evening that you do a first and second reading of this ordinance tonight, which will correct that error in January. We recommend approval of the ordinance this evening. Thank you.
Move to pass that ordinance to second reading by title.
Brooks,
Yes.
Kushner,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes.
an ordinance nunc pro tunc to correct an error in ordinance 5692 concerning annexation of a portion of 703 North Devasia Road. This is for adoption or rejection. Brooks,
Yes.
Kushner,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes. Okay, first and second reading of ordinance, agreement for grant funding services. An ordinance authorizing the city manager and city clerk to enter into an agreement with HDR Engineering Incorporated for grant funding services, presented by Danielle.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and City Council. We've talked a little bit about this already, but want to go over. We applied for the RAISE grant. If you'll remember, Rebuilding America's Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity. We applied for that grant in 2021 for the McGuire Street Gateway project, which is replacing the bridge over Highway 50. But also there were probably 10 or 11 project elements that we were applying for. The total grant was going to be $23 million with federal government plus 10 million of our funds that we had passed in April of 2021, those general obligation bonds. We were not successful in getting that grant. However, when we met with the United States Department of Transportation, we received very favorable feedback on our grant application. They have 4 ratings that they give grant applications. The highest is highly recommended. The second is recommended. Our application was recommended. However, they gave us a few areas they thought that we could really boost our application and make our application more competitive on the second go around. One of those, two of those things were talking about the safety, and with one of the things that we talk about is we've had 2 fatality crashes at the intersection of the Cooper and McGuire. So that was one of the areas that we proposed to address. But we also talked about widening from 3 lanes to 5 lanes. And so one of their feedback is you're going to have 5 more, you're going to have 2 additional lanes, you're going to have more cars. That's going to increase your opportunity for crashes. So they wanted us to address that. And so we will be doing that as part of this reapplication. The other thing, it was showing a more direct regional economic impact. So that is another area we are going to be strengthening in our application. We are proposing, we're talking with Western Missouri Medical as well as the University of Central Missouri to show where we do draw people in and to demonstrate that we truly are a regional destination here in Central Missouri. So that is another area we are proposing to strengthen. Additionally, the new benefit cost analysis, there are a few additional matrices that ringing is really.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Thank you. There are some additional criteria they've added to the benefit cost analysis, and they have asked, we've asked HDR to take a look at those and making sure that as those things have changed, as we're changing a few things in our application, making sure that that benefit cost analysis, we spent so much time trying to make sure it was, a 0.9 or a little bit higher in the first application. Want to make sure that we're maintaining that. Additionally, there are 2 other point criteria that are added, and that is mobility and community connectivity, as well as freight mobility. And so we are going to be adding, we already have the 10-foot side path, on McGuire along that corridor, but we are going to be adding some additional language and narrative to address those two criteria, so that we will score very highly on those as well. For the 2022 grant application process, HDR has given us a proposal to do this work for a fee not to exceed $40,000. The grant application is due April 15th. And so we are respectfully requesting this evening that we do a first and second reading of this ordinance. We will to enter into this agreement with HDR. We will be using remaining proceeds from the 2017 general obligation bond issuance to pay for these services. I think with that, I will answer any questions you may have.
Move that said bill be passed a second reading by title.
Brooks,
Yeah.
Kushner,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Holmberg.
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager and city clerk to enter into an agreement with HDR Engineering Incorporated for grant funding services. This is for adoption or rejection. Brooks,
Yes.
Kushner,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Holmberg.
Yes. Okay. Moving on to 10, other business. 10.1, a resolution of the council. City of Warrensburg accepting proposal prepared by Mike Keith Insurance for workers' compensation insurance for 2022 through 2023. Greg?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the city council. Last week, Mr. Mike Keith dropped by a proposal for work comp renewal through the Missouri Rural Services Work Comp Insurance Trust, as our current policy is set to expire on April 1st of 2022. This quote that was put together by Mike shows a total increase of 5.42% or $16,620 year over year. This amount was arrived by an increase in the direct work comp premium of $18,585. The expense constant remained unchanged at $200. The second injury fund, which is established by the state of Missouri, showed a decrease of $2,151. And the Missouri administrative premium tax showed an increase of $186 for a total increase in premium of $16,620. The issue here is continuing the city's workers' compensation insurance coverage for 22-23. And the staff recommends approval of the resolution as submitted. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I have one. What was last year's experience modifier? Do you remember?
Last year's experience mod was 116. This year's is 106.
Right.
3 years ago was 126.
Okay.
So the experience mod is coming down. The loss ratio unfortunately has gone up a little bit. In speaking with the loss control manager and the underwriting manager that came in to visit with Danielle and myself, I don't know that we can expect the experience mod to go down much, as we've got a good year dropping off and a worse year coming on. We'll see what next year brings. But right now, this is 5.42%. I believe last year's increase was 9.05%.
Thank you. We have a motion for the resolution. Move to approve.
Brooks,
Yes.
Kushner,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Holmberg.
Yes. Okay, item 10.2, project graduation donation request from Stevenson Fund. Who's presenting this?
That would be me. We've been requested to make a donation for the project graduation, as we did last year, $1,000.
Move to approve the request?
Brooks,
Yes.
Kushner,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Holmberg.
Yes. Okay, item number 11, appearances of the council not listed on the agenda. Do we have anybody signing? Okay. Item 12, miscellaneous matters from the mayor and or city council. I don't have anything specific.
Diversity and inclusion would like to thank council for allowing them to come and do the presentation last month or last council meeting.
Anybody else? Anything from staff? Specific. Okay, we'll go on to Director of Finance report.
This evening is the presentation of the director of the revenue funds for the month ending in February. We have received the March receipts for sales tax, and those numbers did go back up for March, which is a good sign for us. That may continue one more month because if we remember, sales tax is 2 months behind. But with everything going the direction it is going and some of the dynamics that we have happening in our world, I would anticipate some declination in that. Hopefully not. Hopefully everybody will kind of stay local and may see our use tax monies start to go back up. We won't see any of the use tax monies significantly until after January of 2023, but we happy. And the furlough monies, excuse me, that were approved this evening, those payments will go out. That process will happen tomorrow, and those will populate to the direct deposits as defined by the employees now that receive those on Wednesday.
No questions. Okay, item 14, city manager report. Daniel?
Marcy always does.
Right. So the WCBD met last Thursday and we discussed the raise grant and the opportunity to provide a letter of support. We will be doing that. 5 of the 6 hotels are located on Russell, and so tremendous impact comes into those hotels from that intersection, and then that is the very first interaction we have in our community. We know that plays a big part, so we're very excited about that. In researching, I'm just really excited to tell you, in 21, Johnson County had over 73 million in tourism-related spending. That's based on 45 of the NAICS codes. So all tourism-related codes that are defined by the Department of Revenue. So that's really exciting. It's gone up just a little bit. So I think it's like 5 million. It's good. At the April board meeting that the WCB will be meeting in person here, April 14th, you invite the council to attend. We will start our meeting with just the routine house cleaning items, and then we're going to be taking a tour. We're going to be taking a tour of 205 North Holden. And 205 North Holden is going to be the future home of the Warrensburg Visitor Center. I'm very, very excited. So I invite you all to come with us on that tour. The board members, some of them have seen it, but some of them have only seen pictures. And so this will be an opportunity for everybody to come through and see and have that good conversation before we start the renovation project. So if you have any questions, April 14th, we meet at 10 o'clock in the morning. If you cannot make it, please let me know. We'll set up a time to get you a tour. Okay, thanks.
Before,
No, I wanted to follow up with some information in the city manager's report. We will submit the solid waste grant tomorrow for the solid waste study, and we did receive all our quotes in. And we will apply for the full 50,000 that you authorized in that resolution 2 weeks ago. The quotes came in ranging from 25,000 to 75,000. So we'll go with the full 50,000 in the request. Wanted to follow up with that information for you.
Before we move on to our ARPA code compliance grant update, I did want to say thank you and show appreciation for our finance department. We talk about the audit, and that is one of the most grueling things I think that our finance department goes through, but honestly, it is their hard work. The other 10 months out of the year, making sure that department directors and supervisors or project managers are all following our policies and procedures, making sure that our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed. And I can't speak highly enough of our finance department and the great work that they do. So I just want to say thank you to them.
I'll also tag on Chief Munsterman. I received a citizen, was very complimentary police department today. I don't know specifically what, but it said very professional, et cetera. And I thought you should know that, pass on. So, okay. 14.1, ARPA code compliance grant update.
So we did a presentation in January concerning the potential use of some of the city's American Rescue Plan Act funds for a sub-grantee program that we were calling the Code Compliance Grant Program. And with the additional information and rules that come out of the U.S. Treasury Department, staff has come to the realization that this is not going to be a feasible project for the city of Warrensburg to offer this grant program. In looking at the reporting requirements that will pass through the city to all subrecipients, and each of our grantees would be considered subrecipients. It is a lot of work from the city's level for our staff, and it will be very burdensome on subgrantees, and likely will involve information they don't have and or would spend a lot of money to create to supply to us. And without that level of reporting from them, the city is at risk, as our auditor just indicated. There is liability to the city, and ultimately we could have to turn those funds back to the federal government. So at this point, we are not going to pursue the program. And if we see, I'm going to leave the door just barely open, so that if we see other cities or counties who figure out a way to do this that doesn't create a burden on the subgrantees, we will try to follow their lead. But at this point, we're not seeing that, and we believe this is why.
Well, thank you. It's disappointing. I know you guys put work in it. It was kind of neat to think that we could give the community $500,000 to do things, but figure out something else to give it away on, right? I mean, it's appreciated, but. Okay, looks like we have a closed session. So anything else from staff or community before we read here and adjourn? Vote to close part of this meeting pursuant to section 610.021 of the revised statute of Missouri relating to item 2, leasing, purchasing, or sale of real estate by a public governmental body.
Brooks,
Yes.
Kushner,
Yes,
Lund,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Holmberg.
Yes.
you were waiting on somebody else to say something.
I'm like, wait a second, my turn.
Rock solid.
Do I?
I'm not used to you reading.
Oh, I know. but I just-
Maybe you want the spares like normal.
Sure, if you guys don't want them.
I know where to find it if I need it.
Yes,
I will also leave.
You want to sign?
it's online. And I had tried to encourage
Oh, I'll
John
tell you,
to
I'm coming. and-
not give me so many of them, but
So I've got extra space.
I know.
I told him, I said. for 10 years, I've been listening to you talk about this, and we're always. And broke it legally, that's what the comment was. And he laughed, and he goes, I'm fair that way, but yeah. No,
We're doing everything we need to do.
yeah, and they always been great groups.
Yes.
And for doing it, John does really well. about making you want to pay attention.
Stuff to do tonight.
But if anybody really wants
Do you want like original signatures or do you want me to just make you a
I've
copy?
seen it. I've worked with it.
Oh, it can be a copy.
That works. You don't even have to. Yeah, I'll sign it real quick and
Exciting meeting.
make a copy.
Stick it by